Hello and welcome to Codivate's Intro to Block-Based Programming in Scratch course. This is lesson 9, and today we're going to continue learning about variables. So last class we introduced variables, and what they basically are is they're places where we can more permanently store data. Previously, the only way we could store things is with the ask block. So we could use the ask block to get some input from the user, and then the answer bubble would have that answer. But the minute we asked a second question, that answer bubble loses whatever the first answer was, so you don't get to store that. Using variables, we can actually store things more permanently. So now we're going to talk about a new way to use variables. Previously, we were just using it as counting, like setting it to like 5 and then adding 1 and figuring out what the number is at the end. Now we're going to combine variables and loops to do something much more powerful. And what that is this type of format right here. Is this. It's repeat until a variable has exceeded or maybe less than some number. So you repeat until your variable reaches a number, and then you keep adding to the variable. So let's say the variable starts at 1 in this case. So what would happen is variable's 1, you're repeating until the variable is greater than 50. So 1, not greater than 50, so we're going to do it. So your computer will say the word 1. Then it'll add 10 to your variable. Now it's 11. 11 is not greater than 50, so it'll say 11. Then it'll say 21. Then it'll say 31. Then it'll say 41. And then 51 is greater than 50, so it skips when it reaches 51. So it ends up saying the words 1, 11, 21, 31, 41. And what this lets us do is it lets us keep track of how many times the loop has run, or what number of the loop you're on. So if you, instead of adding by 10, you added by 1, and you started at 0, you would have, okay, so the number is 0. That means this is your first time going through the loop. Then the number is 1. That means it's your second time going through the loop. And then it's 2. Means it's your third time going through the loop. And you would keep going until you reach whatever number of times you want to loop for. Now, you might think, wait a minute, number of times you want to loop for, there's already a block that does that. It's just repeat 50. Well, the thing is, if you repeat 50, you can't do what I explained right here, which is this, the say my variable for 1 second. If you just use a repeat 50 block, you can't say the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 all the way to 50, because there's nothing keeping track of what number that you're on. It just repeats 50 times, the same thing. You could use another variable in here and increment it, and that's basically what this loop here is. So when you use a variable plus a repeat until with this format here, you have a change the variable by 1, and you have repeat until my variable is greater than some number. And the variable, let's say it starts at 0. This is how you make a repeat loop that keeps track of the number it's on. So with this, we can make programs where the Scratchcat just says the numbers 1 through 10. So try to figure out how to do that, and I'm going to show you the answer now. So it's this. You have the variable starting at 1, and you repeat until the variable is greater than 10. So it'll say 1 to start off with, so there's a 1. Then this variable is now 2. It says 2. Now it's 3, it says 3. 4, it says 4. Now it's 5, it says 5. Now it's 6, 6, all the way 9. It says 9. Then it adds it. Now it's 10. 10 is still not greater than 10, so it's going to say 10. Now my variable is 11. 11 is greater than 10, so it stops looping. So this will, in fact, say the numbers 1 through 10. The next one I'll draw on a whiteboard. I'll show you the numbers as they go. All right, here. Make a program where the Scratchcat says the numbers 5 through 32. So I want it to start at 5 and end at 32. And then once you figure out how to do that, try to do the same with all of these other numbers. The hint is that it's really the same code. It's all just one code. You're just changing the numbers after you figure out what the code is. So here is the structure of the code. You have your starting number. You start by setting the variable to whatever the number you start on. In the first case, it was 5. And then the ending number is here. So once it gets to 32, it'll say it, and then it'll be 33, and it'll stop. And it's just going to say the number and then increment by 1. When you increase something by 1, that is called incrementing. That's a useful vocabulary term to know. It's not important right now, but it might be important later. So I will use a whiteboard now to show you the number as it goes, the variable. Here we go. Okay, so we have this. We have set my variable to 5. So the variable starts at 5. Then you're going to keep checking if it's greater than 32. And once it's greater than 32, you're going to stop. So it starts at 5. That's what we wanted. We wanted it to say the numbers 5 all the way through 32 and then stop. So it starts at 5. This check happens. 5 is not greater than 32, so it will repeat. It'll say the variable. So now it outputs 5. So I'll write output here. So it says 5. And I'll say variable, VAR. So the variable is 5, now the output is 5. Then it changes the variable by 1. Now it's 6. Then it comes back to the top. It checks. Is it greater than 32? It's not. So you do the loop. You say it. So now we're saying 6. And then we're making it 7. And then you're going to keep going. You check 7's not greater than 32, so you say 7, and you increment it to 8. And you're going to keep going, dot, 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 dot. Let's just do the last couple. So it's 30. You go back to the top, you check. 30 is not greater than 32, so you say 30. Then you increment it to 31. 31, not greater than 32, so you say it. And then you make it 32. 32 is not greater than 32, so you say it. Now you increment it to 33. 33 is greater than 32, so you stop looping. And it doesn't say anything else. This is the final thing it says. Now, what's important to note here is that the variable is actually equal to 33 at the end. It's not equal to 32, despite 32 being the last thing the cat says. The variable behind the scenes is actually still 33. So if you want to use the variable later on, you got to keep that in mind, that if you're incrementing and then checking, you will have the variable be a little bit higher than whatever your stopping number is. In this case, it's a little higher than 32. It's 33. If we were incrementing by 2 if we were incrementing our variable by 10, then our number might be like 41 or something if we started at 1 and went to 11, 21, 31, and then 41, right? Depending on the order of things, your variable will not match this number at the end. That's an important thing to note. Now, if you understood that, then these two are also exactly the same to understand. They are the exact same code, exact same algorithm. There's not much to it. It's just the numbers are different. This will start at 7 and go to 19. And the variable will end on 20. So the variable is equal to 20 at this point of the program. In this one, the variable is equal to 21 at this point in the program. All right. Next thing. We're going to write a program now where the cat thinks of a number. So a random number. The computer itself is making a number. If you look on Scratch, there is a block called random. It's one of the green blocks. It lets you get a random number between some number A and number B. You can pick those numbers. So you can do that. So if the user will then get a number, and we can use the ask block to do that, to get the user's guess. And if it's right, the cat should congratulate them. And if it's wrong, then it should say wrong. All right, try that out. All right, here we go. So the way you do this is you make the variable, this is the cat's number. You have to set a variable for the cat's number, and you make it some random number from any number to any other number. It doesn't matter what numbers you pick here. Then we have to use the ask block to get user input, and then very simply from there, we just, if it's equal, then they're right, and if it's not, they're wrong. And that's it. So you might think that, wait a minute, if you're just gonna use the variable, if you're just gonna say, is it equal to a random number, why not just put the random block here instead of the variable? And you would be right in saying that. True, that would work. But in the next example, you're gonna definitely need to use this variable, the same template here. So change it so that if they get it wrong, it should repeat until they get it right with the same number. So try that. And now here. So now it's slightly different. Previously, it was just an if statement. Now it's a repeat until. We changed our if statement to a repeat until. So again, we have the variable, and it's a random number from 1 to 10. Let's say it's 5 right now. So they guess, let's say they guess 4. So is their answer 4 equal to 5? No, it's not. So they repeat. Wrong. Guess another number. This is an ask block. So now they're going to put in another number besides 4. So let's say they say 6. Comes back, 6 is not equal to 5. And then they'll say, okay, maybe it's 5. 5 is equal to 5, so it'll stop looping, and it'll say correct. Now, the reason why you need the variable, and you can't just put your random right into this, is because if you did, it would be random every time it checks. So if you didn't use the variable, instead you put your random block right here, what would happen is they would guess 5. And let's say the random number picked 1. 5 is not equal to 1, so they'd guess another number. Let's say this time they pick 1. Well, now it's going to make another random number because you have a random here. So it'll, maybe the random number picked 2, and now you're going to be wrong. And it's going to keep, they're going to keep getting it wrong even if they guess 1 through 10. And let me just demonstrate it. Let me make it in Scratch real quick. Alright, here. I have recreated it in Scratch. I'm going to run it. So the cat says to guess the number. We're at this block here. So we've already run the pick random. It's run this. The variable is now some random number. I'll actually display it here. So the number is actually 6 right now. And let's say I guess 5. It says wrong, and I'm guessing again. The value is still 6. I guess 6. I'm correct. Now let's not use the variable. Let's just put our random right here, right? We're picking a random number anyway. It shouldn't matter. If I do this, now this variable, I'm not sure what it is anymore. I can't know. Let's say I pick 1. I'm wrong. Okay, so 1 was not the random number. Was 2 the random number? Actually, I'll pick 1 again. If it was wrong the first time, it should be wrong the second time. It's wrong. I'm going to keep doing 1 over and over and over again. It's correct. So what happened was, every time this block is running, every time it's checking, it's making a new random number. And we don't want that. We want to keep the same random number. We want to, in other words, store that random number that we picked the first time. And the only way we know how to store things is with variables. So that's why we need the variable. Otherwise, that 1 was wrong the first time and correct the second time. This is why we need the variable. Alright. Next thing. Another extension to the same thing. I want you to make the program so that when they guess the number incorrect, the cat tells them whether they were higher or lower. So for example, let's say the secret number is 6. User guesses 4. They should say, no, my number's higher than that. And if they guess 8, they'll say, no, my number's lower than that. And if they guess 6, then it'll just be correct and it'll stop the program. Alright, try that. Alright, so this is much bigger, but if you think about it, the only thing that's different is what's inside of the repeat until. The only thing is that you just added this extra if. If you go to the other one, it's the same thing. There's a repeat until answer equals variable with an ask at the end. This is the same thing. Repeat until answer equals variable with an ask at the end. But there's just an if right here. That's the only difference. So you just check whether they were higher or lower and tell them accordingly. So if their number was higher than the secret number, or no, sorry, if the secret number was higher than their number, then say it's higher. If otherwise, it had to have been lower because we know it's not equal. So you say lower. It's that simple. Just add an extra if statement there. Alright, another extension to the same thing. Change the program so that once they guess it correctly, the cat should ask if they want to play again. And if the user says no, stop the game, otherwise repeat the game. Alright, shouldn't be too difficult. Try that. Alright, notice how the code looks slightly different, but it's actually the same, right? All of this stuff inside of the repeat until is the same. The only thing you're adding is you're surrounding it all in a repeat until, and at the very end of it, you're putting want to play again. And this works because once you get to the end, once they pick the right number, even though the answer block was used in the number picking, you're rewriting it over with either yes or no here. So if they say no, it'll stop. If they say anything other than no, it'll keep going, right? And even though they wrote yes in here, it's not going to affect the number guessing because we're rewriting that yes with another number. So you can reuse your answer block to do this same thing. Like, you're kind of doing two things at once with this answer block. Not at once. It's one on the inside and one on the outside kind of thing. Alright, yet another extension is make it so that they play multiple games and you keep track of the number of times that the user successfully guessed the number. Hint, hint, that's involving keeping track of things and storing things, and we know what to use for that at this point. Alright. Okay, so notice how it's almost exactly the same. The only difference is these two blocks right here. All we did was we added a score variable, and every time they say correct, you then add 1 to the score, and then you display what the score is. And that's it. Just some casual counting there. That's what we call counting the number of wins. Alright, now for a new thing that's not guessing numbers. Alright, create a program that adds up the numbers 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 all the way to 10 using a variable and a loop. And the cat should say whatever the sum is at the end. And now if you're stuck, here's a hint. You actually might need to have two variables in this one. One maybe inside of a loop and one outside of a loop. Alright, try that. So here. Now, this might look a little complicated because we're doing two variables and everything's the same color. But let's isolate it. So let's just look at answer. Actually, no. Let's look at second variable. If we just look at second variable, it starts at 1, and it's being changed by 1, and it's going to 10. We already know that format. That's the format we introduced at the beginning of this lesson. That's the counting. So it's going to start at 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now we have a loop that stores 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4 every time it goes through. So all we have to do is take that 1, 2, 3, 4, and just sum them up. Put them inside of another thing. And the way we do that is with this sum. Well, I shouldn't call this answer. I should really call this sum. This answer block should be called sum. And it starts at 0 because when you don't have anything, you're at 0. And what happens is you start at 1, and we're putting a variable inside of this change by. So what's happening first is, I'll actually get the whiteboard out for this. What's happening first is, shrink that, is this. So the answer is 0, and I'll call it current. Actually I'll just call it the same, that it's already there. I'll call it second. So second answer. So our answer is 0, our second is 1. Now, in the first one, in the first loop, we add second to our answer. This change by is really you're adding this number to this variable. So we're adding 1 to 0. Now answer is 1. And then we're changing second to 2. We're adding 1 to it. And now we're going to the start of the loop again. Now we're adding second to our answer. We're adding 2 to 1. Now it's 3. And then we're incrementing our second. So now our second is 3. Then we're going back to the top. We're adding our second to our answer. 3 plus 3 is 6. And then we're incrementing second by 1. Now it's 4. And then we keep going until second reaches 11. Once it reaches 11, we're stopping. So 4 plus 6 is going to be 10. And then you make this number 1 higher. And then 5 plus 10 is 15. You make this 1 higher. And then 6 plus 15 is 21. You make this 1 higher. 17 plus 21 is 28. You add 1 to this 7. Now it's 8. You add 8 and 28 together. That's 36. And now it's 9. You add 9 and 36. That's 45. Then you make this 10. And this is the last time we're doing it. 10 plus 45 is 55. Now second is 11. And 11 is greater than 10, so you stop. And now it displays our 55. It's displaying answer. So 55 is going to be what this... If you copy this into Scratch, 55 is what you should get out. And I hope that makes sense. Our second variable, this my second variable, is just counting. It's just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the 11 we're not doing anything with. An answer is just taking the number and just adding it. And it keeps on adding it to whatever you already have. So you start at 0, you add 1, then you add 2, then you add 3. Every time you're just adding whatever this second variable is equal to your answer. And that is how you sum things. You use a second variable to sum up what was in the first variable each time. Alright. Okay, now I want to do the same thing, except instead of ending at 10, I want you to make it so that the Scratch Cat asks the user for a number and adds from 1 up to that number. So if the user says 20, it'll go do the same thing, but it'll stop at 20. And if the user says 10, it'll do exactly the same as before. So really, if you think about it, we're just replacing one number here. We're just replacing this number right here is the key to figuring this out. It's just replacing this number because the way you do it is still the same. We're still taking our number and we're adding it to 0 and then to whatever we had previously. So it's the same process. So we should keep using the same code. But the only difference is we're changing the number we stop at. And we're changing it to an ask block. We ask for the end. And then instead of using 10, we use whatever they said. And if you input 10 into this, you should still get 55. And if you input 20, you'll get whatever the number is. I don't actually know. It gets harder as you go longer. I'm not doing the math. But you can put whatever number you want in here. If you end up putting a number like -1 or 0, you'll actually just get 0 back. Or actually, if you input negative numbers, this will be really weird. No, it'll actually just keep giving you 0 because 0 is always greater than a negative number. So this is immediately stopped and no, never mind. I was wrong. If you input a negative number here, you'll just get 0 back, which is fine. That's what you want. Next thing, exercise 5. Write a program where instead of counting up from 1 to 10 and adding the numbers, we're now counting down from 20 to 0 instead of 0 to 20. So how can we do that? Well, we know how to start from 20. We just set the thing to 20. And we also know how to decrease a variable by 1. You just change it by, and you put -1 in the bubble. So we can do those two things, and we can put that in a loop. Honestly, this is going to be the same thing that I showed you at the beginning of this lesson, except you're changing your numbers around. You're changing the increment. You're changing that number inside the loop, that change variable by, you're changing that from 1 to a negative number, maybe. And you're changing the starting number from 0 to something else. And this is it. Notice that we have the start, we have our condition check, and we have our change here. It's the same kind of format, except you're only changing what the numbers are. So you're changing this 20, this 0 to a 20. You're changing this 1 to a -1 because you're going down instead of up. And this greater than has now become a less than symbol. So what this does is, it starts at 20, it checks. Repeat until This number's less than 0. 20 is not less than 0, so we're going to keep going. And it's going to say it, and it's going to make it 19. 19 is not less than 0, so we're going to keep going. 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, all the way down to 3, 2, 1, 0. And then once you're at -1, it'll stop and it'll just say go. So this will in fact say the 0 part. So it'll say 3, 2, 1, 0, go. If you want to make it not say 0, if you want to just make it say 3, 2, 1, go, then think about how you would change that. Really, it would just be changing the 0 to 1. Alright, next thing. Extension. Instead of starting from 20, make it so that the cat asks the user for a number and counts down from there. This should be pretty much the same code, except you're adding like one thing. And there you go. It's the same code from here to here, except we added an ask and we put answer here instead of the number 20. And this will work. It'll keep counting down from whatever number you put in. If your user tries to be tricky and puts in like a negative number, it just won't do anything. It'll just say go, because if you put -2 in here, -2 is less than 0. So it'll just not do any of the looping and just say go. Alright, that's all for this lesson. Thank you for watching.